Welcome. In this video I'm going to be taking a look at this ICECO PB1000 portable power station and 80-watt portable solar panel. So these were provided to me by the distributor, but they're not compensating me for this video and they're not reviewing it before I post it. If you find this video helpful and you want to purchase one of these, I'll put a link to it in the description, and if you use that link, it helps me out a little bit and doesn't cost you anything extra. So if you're not familiar with ICECO, they're well known for their top tier portable fridges. They have many different models. They have fridges, freezers, things like that. So it makes sense that they would come out with a portable power station. This is a lithium iron phosphate portable power station, but we'll get into the specs in a bit. So let me get rearranged here and we'll start to unbox these. So I'm going to be careful when I cut this open. I don't know what's under here. Looks like we have another box. I'll pull that out. So let's get this open. So we have a piece of foam. It's not styrofoam, so it's nice. It's not going to flake all over. And here we have the manual. Let's take a quick look at it. So here's the table of contents. This talks about what it comes with. We have the power station, Anderson to 7909 connecting cable, AC charging cable, and user manual. Okay, so here we have the specs. Rated capacity is 10,075.2 watt hours. This weighs 14.73 kilograms. You can pause and read through the rest of these here. AC charge input voltage is around 6.7 amps, and AC charge input power is 800 watts. Solar charge input is 430 watts, and car charger is 192 watts, and those are max. Now we have the output specs. Rated output power is 1200 watts, has pure sine wave output. UPS switching time is 10 milliseconds. It outputs 10 amps at 12 volts with a cigarette lighter socket output. Then it has two DC outputs at 3 amps each. And then we have USB-A output at 18 watts max and USB-C output at 100 watts max. It does 10 watts wireless charging and has a 3 watt LED light. And here we have the different parts and the legend. We have different buttons here. These are the buttons to control it. It has different modes, and I will go over these. It has an LCD display, so we have input and output on the LCD display, and this talks about more of those features. So here we have error codes. So these are codes that would show up if the different protections are triggered, and this goes over what they are. And I have to say this manual seems to be very well written. So this talks about charging. So AC charging is 1.6 to 2.4 hours. Solar charging is 3.2 to 7.7 hours. And then charging from a car is 13.2 to 20.4 hours. So here's an example of how you might use this. Say you're going on a camping trip. Before you leave the house, you might charge it up with AC. While you're driving to the campsite, you might plug it into your car to maintain the charge. That assumes you're using it while you're driving. And then when you get to your campsite, you might set up solar to maintain the charge while you're camping. So this talks about how to do the AC 12 volt charging, solar charging. Here are the operating instructions. It has a cooling fan, power saving mode. This talks about cleaning it, storage, transportation, and some troubleshooting and maintenance, disposal, recycling, and warranty. Okay. Here we have an accessories box and the power station. So it has a handle here. I'm going to pull this off the bench and lift it back up onto the bench. There we go. Let me get a weight on this. So it says 14.55 kilograms, so it's just under what the specs said, so that's good. It's not heavier, and that equates to 32.08 pounds, so around 32 pounds. So this power station uses lithium iron phosphate. Lithium iron phosphate is heavier than traditional lithium ion, but it has many advantages. You can put more cycles through it before it degrades. It doesn't have thermal runaway. You can charge this up to 100%, you can take it down to 0%. Now when you're storing it, it's best to store it somewhere in the middle. You don't want to drain this down to 0 and then leave it. That's not good for it. But otherwise, it's a very robust technology, and it's good for devices like this. So we have the wireless charging on top. On the front, we have buttons. See if I can tilt this up a little bit. So this would be the on, mode, light. We have a screen. We have plastic over the screen. Here we have the PV input, DC output, USB output, and we have our two AC ports. So this is going to have a 1200 watt total combined output. Let's take a quick look at the bottom. So we have these triangular rubber pads. On the side here we have a vent and vent here. Then on the back we have AC input. So this is a standard computer style power cord. We also have a grounding lug here. We have a breaker and we have an LED light. And then of course it has the handle on the top that can fold flat. So that gives you kind of a surface here. Now you don't want to stack a tremendous amount of weight on here, but this can be really handy. If you're camping, you can charge your phone on here, and then you could probably put other small items up here, like say maybe your glasses or a flashlight. You don't want to put any metal items on the wireless charger, obviously, but it gives you a nice little surface there. Let's look at the accessories. So here we have that power cable, and it's a thick one. It's a 14 gauge wire. It's right around 5 foot long. And then we have the Anderson to 7909 PV cable. So that will go in here to connect up solar panels. So we're going to go over all the features of this, but let me get the solar panel unboxed. So this is double boxed also. And here we have the solar panel. It has a handle on it. Pull that out. Again, this has the foam that is not styrofoam, so it's not going to break apart on you. We have some foam on the inside too. Let's open up the pouch here. Okay, and here we have the manual. So here are the specs. So peak power on this is 80 watts, efficiency is 22%. It outputs to DC 7909, hence the adapter that came with the power station. Weight on this is 12.3 pounds. So here we have frequently asked questions, some notes, warranty, and a thank you. So if we look in here, we have some little clips. These look like they hang over the side of the solar panel to maybe route the wiring, and there's 4 of those. Then we have the 7909 barrel jack, and this cable is just under 5 feet. So this is a folding solar panel. So it has magnets on the handle here to hold it closed. And then we can open it up. You can see the 2 sides of the solar panel. We have grommets on the 4 corners. So if you wanted to mount this somehow, you could use those. Let's flip this over. And here we have this pop-out leg. So this also has magnets on it, and it has these straps to kind of keep them closed. So this is what you can use to set the angle. And I'm going to go over how to set this optimally to get the best charging. So I'm going to set this aside for now. We'll take a look at it again in a little bit. Okay, so we're back to the power station. So to turn it on, we'll hold down on the power button. So if I just press it, it's not going to turn on. I want to hold it down until it turns on. There we go. Then we have mode here. So this is the charging mode. So there's a little leaf here on the display. When I press this, it will turn on and off fast charging. So when you have it on slow charging, it will charge at 1/4 of the rate of the fast charging. It's nice that you can lower the charging. So you might have an outlet that doesn't have 800 watts available and you don't want to trip a breaker. You can turn the charging power down on this. Then we have the light here, and that's on the back, and I'll do a better example of that. And then we have the DC output, USB output, and AC output. So when I press these, it will turn them on. You can see here it says car, USB, and AC. It has these nice icons. So this currently says 50 Hertz. When I plug this in to charge it, it will recognize that I'm charging it with 50 Hertz and switch that over. Otherwise, you can do it manually. So the reason you turn these on or off is because there's circuitry in here that takes some power to support the outlets, even if you're not using them. So to conserve power, you tell it which ports you want to use and which ones you don't want to use. So I can turn all of these off. I'll turn this off. So let's try charging this. I'm going to plug the power into the back. And I'll plug that into this outlet here. So we can see the display lit up. It says input 0 watts. Of course, we'll give it a second. I just heard a click. And now it's charging. You can see this ramping up here. So it's charging at 800 watts, and it says it will take 47 minutes to finish. So if I look at my power meter, and it just dropped down, now it's at 700 watts, 706 watts. So this will vary the rate of charging depending on the state of charge. So as the battery fills up, it will slow down that rate of charge that it's charging at. Now if we look down here, we can see it's charging at 60 Hertz. So if we press mode here, that little leaf will come up, and then it dropped down to 200 watts. So I'm going to let this get charged up, and then we'll test it out. Okay, so I have the power station all powered up. I'm going to do a continuous power test using this air cleaner. So I'll turn this on. And I have a device here to monitor the power. So when this is finished, we can see how much power I'd output to the air cleaner. So I'll turn the AC on here. It currently says we have 99 hours. Now the air cleaner kicked on, it was already on, and it's drawing 78 watts, and it says we have 12 hours of runtime. So I'm going to check this in around 12 hours or so, and then we'll look at the stats on how long this ran and how much power it consumed. Okay, it's the next day, and I think it's actually right around 12 hours later, but we'll look at the exact numbers. And the battery's now at 0, so let's head over to the computer and take a look at the stats. Okay, so here I have the stats from my energy monitor. So this ran for just under 12 hours. I mean, I think it was minutes under 12 hours. And this is showing the energy consumption. So when we turned it on, it peaked at, looks like around 73 watts. And then you can see in running, it was around 72 watts. So it's within a watt of 72. And then we get to the end, it ended at 72.4 watts. So you can see the wattage is very consistent. So you can see this going up and down, but this is between 72.2 watts and 72.7 watts. So if we scroll down here, this is our consumption. The top line is total consumption and the bottom is per day. I did this overnight, so it's broken apart. But if we go up here, we see it ended with 0.87 kilowatt hours. So the battery has 1075.2 and we used 870 watt hours. So that puts us at about 81% efficiency. That being said, there may be some reserve capacity in there that it's not allowing us access to, but this is about what I'd expect from a portable power station. If we go lower, we have voltage. So you can see the voltage here was between 119.9 and 120. So we had very, very consistent voltage here. You can see all of these up and downs are 1/10 of a volt. And this is the current in amps, which correlates with the watts and voltage, I guess. So the previous test was a continuous load. So in this test, we'll be doing an intermittent load. So I have this chest freezer here, and the compressor on this cycles. So here we're kind of simulating powering this during a power outage or something. So I have it plugged into the energy monitor. Let's turn this on. We'll turn on AC output. It just kicked on, and it looks like it's drawing about 700 watts. So here it's been a minute, and it's already cycled, and now it's drawing 0 watts. So I'm going to let this run, and we'll check back with it later. Okay, so the battery's depleted now, and it's actually the next day. I ended up plugging it back into the wall and shutting the power station off a little after 11 p.m. last night because I didn't want it going off in the middle of the night, and then I plugged it back in this morning. So let's go take a look at the data. Okay, so here's the current consumption, and when this started up, it draws a lot of wattage, and it may not register with the monitor, but you can see here, it peaked out at 1086 watts. Here it's 1084, 1082, and 1084. So there's a surge when it starts, and then it tapers off to around maybe 70 to 80 watts, and this runs for about 45 minutes, I think. So we have 11:14 to 12:07. So it runs at around 70 watts or so for that 45 plus minutes. And then when it's not running, it drops down to 0 watts. So when this is at 0 watts, since the inverter is on the power station, it is using some power just to keep the inverter on. So if you really wanted to stretch this, you could actually turn it off and turn it on intermittently and let the freezer cool back off. But when you do that, you could also get longer run times. So I'm apt to just leave it plugged in and let it do its thing. So I did unplug this. It looks like 11:41 at night, and then I plugged it back in at 6 in the morning, and the total runtime on this is around 18.5 hours. Now that may or may not bridge a power outage. I've seen power outages that last hours and others last days, but I think that's a pretty good runtime for an intermittent load. Now if you were to connect a solar panel to this, you could use the solar to recover some of the charge it's using, and that would extend this quite a bit. Okay, so I've depleted the battery down to 0 in my runtime tests, so I'm going to charge it back up with solar, and I don't expect that I'll fill it up to 100% with solar, but I want to see how high I can charge it with solar using this test. I'm not completely sure what the sun's going to do today, so we'll find out at the conclusion. So first I'll deploy the solar panel. Let's head around to the back side. I'll pull the cables out here. Okay, so I have the adapter cable. I'll plug that in here, and I'll plug that in the input. So the screen immediately turned on, and we're getting 50 watts of charging right now. So next I want to work on aiming this. So for the most optimum charging, you want the panel aimed directly at the sun. You also don't want anything shading it. So a tip for aiming it is to use a cylinder and place it against the panel. So here I have a paint can, and I want to angle and tilt the panel until the shadow disappears. So I think that's pretty good. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's very close. Now, needless to say, the sun is going to move, so throughout the day, I want to come out here and re-aim it. Right now, it's pointed very much towards the east because it's very early in the morning. So if we look on the power station, we're now getting 66 watts of solar charging. So this is an 80-watt panel, and it can be very difficult to get the exact rated wattage of the panel, but I think we're looking pretty good right now. So to adjust the angle of this, I just pulled these feet out, and it has these holes here, so if you're camping or something, it looks like you could put some tent stakes in here to support it a little bit. I just butted it up against the battery because this concrete is a relatively slick surface and it would potentially slide. Now I do want to keep the battery out of the sun, so I'll throw something on here to shade it a little bit. I could also tuck it behind the panel here. So it does say the charge time at this rate would be 16 hours. Now I'm not going to have that much sunlight in a day, so I already know this won't charge up to 100%. But we should get a pretty significant charge so long as the sun keeps shining today. So I'll check in with this throughout the day, and then I'll sum it up at the end of the day. Okay, so it's a little past noon. We're currently at 11% state of charge, so I'm going to move the panel into the sun so we can get charging again. Okay, so I repositioned the panel, and now I'm getting around 70 watts of charging. I'm not at the perfect optimum angle, but I'm pretty close. Now there's going to be a tree in the way shortly, so I'll probably have to come out and re-aim this in a bit. Okay, so it's a little after 6 p.m., and we normally would have some more sunlight, but it looks like there's a storm coming. So I think I'm done charging for the day. So if we look at the battery here, we got about 29% charge on the battery. Now there were a couple of times I was a little late getting it repositioned as trees were shading it and such. So if I was in a more sunny area, I think I could have easily got a third of the battery charged today. So to put this away, I'll just unplug it. And now I'll fold up the panel. And I'll stow the cable in the pouch. I'll also turn off the power station. So I started at 0 and I was able to recover just under 1/3 of the power. Now I could have been more attentive at turning the solar panel towards the sun during the day and making sure it wasn't in the shade, and that would have helped recover more of the charge. But it looks like there's a storm coming, so I'm going to head inside and take cover. Okay, so I'm out here at this stump, and this is quite a ways from a power outlet. So if we wanted to run a corded drill out here, we'd have to run a really long extension cord. So this is a perfect application for using a power station like the PB1000. So this has 1200 watts output. Now this drill on idle with no load is I think around 250 watts or so, maybe 200, something like that. And then at load, I think it was getting around 800 watts. Now it's possible this could trigger some overcurrent protection because we have this long bit we're going into a stump, but we'll try it out. And this is a very old antique drill here. So I'll get a shot of drilling a hole, and then I'll do another shot looking at the display so you can see the wattage that it's drawing. So the battery seemed to handle that just fine. I was kind of tapping out the power of this drill. Let me get another shot showing the display here. Okay, so now I'll drill another hole. So that worked out really nice. We've tried drilling these with a cordless drill, but this is the biggest drill we have, or the most powerful for this kind of job. So it's nice being able to pull power directly where you need it, and it can essentially turn many corded tools into cordless tools. Okay, so I'm getting set up for outdoor movie night. So I have the ICECO here plugged into my projector, and I have the projector on a tripod, and I just looped a rope around the hook on the tripod to the handle of the power station just to give the tripod a little bit more stability. Now I actually have a power outlet probably 4 or 5 feet from where we're plugged in, so I could easily get an extension cord and plug it in, but I really like this option because if you look around here, there's no cords sticking out here. So it's going to be dark soon, people are going to be walking around this area, and no one's going to be tripping. With a portable power station like the ICECO, I have a standalone setup here. Of course, if you don't have an extension cord nearby, this is even more useful. So you could take this camping in your RV, you could take it out in the back of your lot and maybe point this at a garage or a shed. So the projector is currently on, and this projector draws around 200 watts, and it says we'll have about 7 hours of runtime, so we'll easily have enough power to watch a movie. We could even watch a couple movies. Okay, so this has the wireless charging on top. So to activate it, I'll just turn this on. And I don't need to turn on DC output, USB, or any of those. I can just place the phone right on top, center it, and it will start charging. So here you can see it's charging. The PB1000 can also act as a UPS. That's an uninterruptible power supply. So I currently have this tower computer and monitor plugged into the power here, and this is plugged into the wall. So it's passing through power from the power cord to the computer. It's not using the battery, but if I unplug it from the wall, it will automatically switch to the battery, and we shouldn't see a disruption in the computer. Okay, so I heard a relay click here, and now it's running off the battery. So it's currently drawing 66 watts, and it says we have about 13, 14 hours of runtime. Now this is at idle. If I start doing something, that may go up or down. Let's say the power goes back on. I'll plug this back in. I heard a relay click, and now it's sending power through to the computer again. Okay, so let's take a look at the light. So I'll press the button. I'll turn the light on. So this is on the low mode, and there will be flashing lights coming up if you're sensitive. But I'll press it again, and this turns it on the high mode. So this lights up a pretty nice area. This could work well on a picnic table, so you could light things up while you're preparing food or something. Next we have flicker mode, and then we have SOS mode. So this will flash the light in an SOS pattern. If we press it again, it turns it off. On the low mode, it takes 3 watts. High mode, it takes 5 watts. And then the flash mode, it's 3. And SOS is 2. And it says it will run for 99 hours. So you can get a very good runtime out of that light. This is what it looks like from the other side. So here I have a laptop, and we can use the power station to power this. There are 2 ways to do it. One, we can plug a power brick into the AC output. So now we're charging. I'll let this settle out for a minute. So this is currently charging at 117, around 120 watts, but this has built-in USB charging. So I can turn this off, and I'll plug it in here. So I'll press USB out, and I'll plug into the USB, let that settle out again, and here we're charging at 58 watts. So with the built-in USB PD output, we're going to get more efficient charging than if we're using a traditional power brick with the AC. Doing it this way, we can bypass that AC inverter. Now we can also charge phones this way. This is an older phone that does not support wireless charging, so I can plug into it, and I can plug it in one of the USB-A ports. Like so, and now it's charging. So let's unplug this. So with just a laptop plugged in, this is saying it has 18 hours runtime. So that's the ICECO PB1000 lithium iron phosphate portable power station and 80-watt solar panel. There's no way I could cover every application of a portable power station like this, but hopefully I gave some good use cases so you can understand what this is capable of. So having been used this, I've been really impressed with it. I really like the form factor, the rectangular shape. It packs in a car easily. It's easy to store on a shelf. Generally speaking, this has a nice attention to detail. For instance, this display is backlit, and after a while it turns off. So if you're using this in a bedroom at night, you don't have that light shining. And if you want to turn it on again to check the status, you just press the on-off button once, and it turns that light back on. Many portable power stations will stay lit all night, so you have to cover it with a piece of paper or tape. Also, this charges with just a power cord, so you don't have to have a separate brick, so this is super easy to pack away. And the 1200 watt AC output gives us lots of capabilities that you won't find in smaller power stations. So I hooked this up to the fridge for my intermittent test, and that only draws around 70 watts, which a lot of power stations can handle. That's pretty easy, but it peaked up really high, and this thing doesn't flinch. And with that 1075 watt hour capacity, you're going to get a lot of runtime out of this. So a power station like this would be good for camping, emergencies, tailgating, outdoor movie night, take it to a picnic. The use cases are endless. And then we add on the solar panel to replenish some of that charge that we're using in the power station, and it can give you more time off grid without having to plug in. So that's all I'm going to cover in this video. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you like this video, please click like. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'd appreciate if you could do that. And thanks for watching. Until next time, goodbye.